Thank you for having me here tonight. This is exciting. Okay, Mario, you are way taller than I am. Somebody help adjust that there. Thank you. And I feel like I'm kind of tall, so. Okay, well, thank you for having me. I've heard some amazing things about this organization. I have a daughter who's been here a couple of times, and she claims that I intentionally planned tonight to be on a night where she couldn't be here, and that was partly true. She's in class, so. But I will tell you, and I was telling y'all somebody earlier, that social media thing that y'all do has gotten me in so much trouble with my kids, because my daughter's connected to y'all, so she puts it out in the group text to the whole family, and all day long my kids have been just picking on me, Mom, Mama. And I'm like, y'all don't know what I do, and it's okay. You don't need to know. So, but thinking about this group and coming here tonight, when I met with Mario, he's like, well, think about when you were like 22, 25, getting out of college, and thinking about coming to something like this if it existed. To be honest, I'm not sure I would come. I was more of like a fly on the wall type person. And it would have really scared me unless I had somebody to come with. And I've already met at least one person here tonight that came by themselves. So I just want to say kudos to you all for stepping out, going out of maybe your comfort zone, and coming to something like this, because that's the first step, is just putting yourselves out there. So hopefully tonight, maybe learn something about yourself, or hopefully can give you some things to think about. That's another thing, talking to my kids who are about this age, I'm like, well, what have I ever said that's relevant to you? And they're like, So anyway. So I don't know, it's a little and then the other challenge of tonight, to be honest, as a speaker and working in schools, I know there's some teachers here, and there's teachers that have heard me speak before in the Catholic schools, and y'all ask us to share our personal journey. Most of the times when we come up, we're talking professionally, or we're talking about vision or mission or something, but it's not usually personal, and so it's harder to share personally than it is professionally. So you really give us a challenge. So I've been asked to share a little bit about my story and how my Catholic faith plays a part in my professional life. But for me, the journey really began and evolved through my personal life to get me here. It's not what I've ever thought I would do. I did not ever think I would be in education. That was not the plan. So the themes you're going to hear of what I'm going to be touching on is uncertainty, commitment, and balance. But most important, I think the one tagline I want you to leave with tonight is you have to love what you do. Because when you're doing that, you're doing God's will. So I grew up in Catholic schools. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, attended Catholic school 1st through 12th grade, all girls Catholic high school. My family and all of the people I knew were Catholic or were Jewish. And to be honest, I didn't know there was anything else out there. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't even know there was anything else out there until I was in high school. And a boy moved in the neighborhood who went to church on a Wednesday night. And we could not figure that out. We were like, what is that? It's not Jewish and it's not Catholic. I mean, so that gives you an idea of how sheltered and insulated my life was. That's all I knew, all we did. And it was not very diverse. Went to Rice University. Did not go because of the great academic institution it is. My priorities in life were it's a warm climate, it's got a pretty good education. The city of Houston is larger than the entire state of Delaware, and they had really tall buildings, and they gave me a track scholarship. So that's how I ended up in Houston. My dad was not pleased with my thought process at the time. And I didn't have very high expectations. But as I was reflecting on this in this talk tonight, my dad was a major force in shaping me and my expectations professionally in particular. There were 5 kids in the family. I was number 2, 4 girls, 1 boy. And the girls in particular, we were told we would have a professional career in business, and it was going to be a power career, and we had to support ourselves, and we should never rely on somebody else to do that for us. That's how I was raised. In fact, way back when they had typing classes, my dad wouldn't let me take one. He said, you're going to have, at the time, a secretary, and you'll never need to know how to type. So So I type all kinds of funky, but that was what my life growing up, and that was the expectation. Then you go to a school like Rice, where it's completely competitive academically. And when you graduate from Rice, the expectation is you are going to be something and do something. And you are going to solve world hunger or create the next greatest invention, or you're going to, I mean, you come out of that school and you think, well, what if I don't? Or how do I do it? So I didn't know what I was doing when I graduated college. I didn't know how I was going to have this power career. Didn't really have anybody to mentor me, except for my dad, who told me that's what I was going to do. And then, to be honest, where was my faith life? It was just taken for granted. I was a cradle Catholic, never been challenged in my faith before, didn't really rely on it a whole lot. So I didn't know what I was going to do. Graduated at 21 years old. All of my preconceived ideas and notions, I didn't realize it, but was seriously about to be challenged. Because graduated in May, the Thursday night before Labor Day weekend, I went back to the college campus and I met a guy. And I went home to my mom that weekend and I said, I met the guy I'm going to marry. And she goes, you're supposed to marry this guy. You've dated him all through college. I'm like, no. I know that guy's not right. I met this guy. We were engaged after 3 weeks. Yes, 3 weeks. I told you I met a guy, and it was the guy. We got married after 11 months. His mom was saying, well, it's finally getting to be respectable. So, you know, she's kind of gotten a little bit better about that. But we've been married for 27 years. 27 years. We have 4 children. Honestly, I truly believe God chose him for me. I knew it the night I met him. He chose him for me. But what was really scary is he was not Catholic, and he was a Marine. He was an enlisted Marine who was sent back to Rice for 2 years to get a degree to become commissioned as an officer. So first of all, I had absolutely no idea what the Marine Corps was. And then I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, had no military in the family. Secondly, I thought, well, what does it matter that he's not a Catholic? Although my mom was really trying to teach me that at the time, like, you really need to think this through. And I'm like, why? I'm good. So it changed my life. So Jim, he's an amazing guy. He pushed me to professionally see myself in a different way. And where I had set the bar pretty low, he pushed me to put the bar higher. So I got on the right path for this power business career. So with an engineering and construction firm in Houston, I became responsible for all of the domestic cash management for the company, and I was on the right path, right? So my uncertain professional world was becoming more certain. I could do this. I was in control, had the answers. Like my son tells me all the time, I got this, Mom, I got this. Then real life happened. Being married to a non-Catholic. When we got married in the Catholic Church. We were going to raise our children Catholic. He was going to become Catholic. It's like we said, I do, and he's like, okay, now tell me, answer my questions. Like what? Well, tell me, why is Mary so important? Why are the saints important? Why can't I receive communion at Mass? What happens at the Mass? Because when you go to my church, you can. And I'm like, this is what they always told me. This is the way it is, and we're going to do it this way. And he's like, well, he was a Marine. And he's like, no, that's not good enough. So he started challenging me, and well, he had just come off of the DMZ in Korea and did nothing but study the Bible. So he was quoting scripture at me all the time. I'm like, look, I don't know about that, but I can't help you out. So this was a challenge, and it was going on. And that went on for a while. Then the Marine Corps. Well, what in the world was I thinking about that I could have a career with the Marine Corps? I just want to know. I don't know. So Jim loved me enough. We had started moving. I had to leave my job. Started moving, and we had our first child. And he said, I'll get out of the Marine Corps. I said, good. Okay. And so my old company held a position for me for 6 months. and I was going back to be an international cash manager, being responsible for all the international cash. Good, I'm on the right path. Had a 2-year-old at the time, not quite 2. When she was born, she was sick, and she had to have 4 operations. She had an obstructed airway, but she was fine. So I moved back to Houston ahead of Jim, and got there, got into the job, the dream job. Jim was going to get out. 3 weeks after I get there, Rebecca gets sick. She ends up with 105 temperatures. Go back in. God placed us there because we were at Texas Children's Hospital with the doctor who kids flew in from all over the world to see. But then my company, so she had 8 operations by the time she was 2.5. And for the second half of them, most of the time my husband was deployed and he was overseas. So then my company said, we're not going to give you medical insurance. It's a pre-existing condition. So Jim could not get out of the Marine Corps. We couldn't risk it. So we had a plan. He loved me enough to do this. I had this career, and I had a decision. And it was a marriage, a family, the career, the shaping of my whole life. The big lesson and one of the first core values that I learned, commitment. We said I do. I realized the job was just a job because he wasn't there to share it with. And my little girl needed to be with her dad. So I walked away from the job and we went into the Marine Corps. Well, God had a plan for him. My husband did amazing things in the Marine Corps and impacted so many people, and that was truly his calling. So where did it leave me? I was 27 years old, really didn't have a clue, but I had this internal struggle of I'm supposed to be this, and now God, you've given me this. I would say, if I could pick one moment in time, that was the beginning of my faith journey, right there, because I had nothing else. I didn't know. So we moved in the Marine Corps 12 times in 18 years. My ability to have a true career, non-existent. The internal struggle was real, felt like a failure. But understanding where true happiness comes from was a result, was an aha moment for me. I remember sitting down after one of these moves, and my husband looked at me, he goes, how can I make you happy? And I said, you can't. It has to come from within me. I have to be happy, and I have to be at peace. And the only way I could find peace was through a deeper relationship with Christ. And I did that, and I could see myself grow, and I could see myself become okay. And I really believe that God intentionally places people or experiences in your path that leads you or gives you the opportunity to say yes, okay? And to recognize it for what it is. So, and that's the key part, is recognizing it. So it was in saying yes. So I'm going to go through a few opportunities that came along my path, along our way, that shaped me and where I am today. So I said yes when I didn't want to. When it was the first Christmas party, after moving to Hawaii, being so far away from my family, 2 little kids at home, and my husband was deployed after 6 weeks of being there. And it was a Christmas party, and a woman called me up and said, you are coming to the battalion Christmas party. My husband and I are picking you up, and you will go. Okay, so I went solo. Remember, I was that fly on the wall. I went solo to a Christmas party, and that led to 4 amazing years of being part of a volunteer organization that helped empower other Marine Corps spouses, wives, and to find happiness in this lifestyle. I ended up leading the entire organization in Hawaii, had a team of volunteers of about 85 people, and then the Marine Corps tapped into me and had me travel to places like Japan and Virginia to do the training. It filled my professional cup, gave me purpose in life, but it all resulted from saying yes to go to a Christmas party. It was saying yes to being a Catholic when I told my husband that I was no longer going to help him find reasons for him not to be a Catholic, and that it was up to him. But I knew growing up, the Catholic Church had a lot of problems. It still does today. But it's black and it's white. And when I was a teenager, I could choose the black side or I could choose the white side, and I knew exactly what I was choosing. And raising our children, I was not going to have them confused as to what was right and what was wrong. And so I said yes to the faith and said, I'm here, I love you, it's on your own. That resulted in him becoming a Catholic. He found his answers. He went to somebody else, but he became a Catholic when our third child was baptized at the Easter Vigil. So it took a few years. It was saying yes to the commitment of faith-based education. We had always had our kids in a faith-based, either Catholic or a Christian education. When we moved to Japan, we didn't have that option. We went to our first public experience. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just that's not what I was used to. It's not what I grew up with. We didn't have the money for the private school, but I didn't like it after week 1 of the public, of the DoD school. So we put him in a Japanese missionary Christian school where half the kids were Japanese. And in October, the principal called me and he said, we just lost our 2nd grade teacher, would you want a job? I majored in business, not education. But I said, well, I don't know, 9, 7-year-olds, how hard can it be? Yeah, who's the teachers in the rooms? How do you know? Yeah, when I was driving home, like, who's in control of this classroom? Not me, right? So that led to, that yes led to a passion for education, for this core belief that a teacher has a responsibility. It's a vocation and it's a calling. I had a Japanese dad write me a letter, all in Japanese. And he said, this is a non-Christian country, and he said, I thank God every day for you and your school, because without you, my son would not be educated. He had a disability. The Japanese system wouldn't take him. He couldn't walk, and he couldn't. And I wow, this job now became this, that I took to pay tuition. There's a job. Became this calling to a vocation that I realized God chose me for. It was saying yes to the Holy Spirit. Didn't know it at the time, but saying yes to the Holy Spirit that was nudging me when I couldn't console my son one night. He was going into 4th grade, night before the first day of school, crying uncontrollably. My husband left that day to go to to go to Iraq. This is during the time when we took back Fallujah and during the first Iraqi elections. And so he left, and my 4th grader could not stop. And I'm like, you gotta go to bed. You gotta go to sleep. So I went, didn't know why. I grabbed my husband's rosary and I handed it to him. And I said, Garrett, hold the rosary. You don't need to pray it. You don't need to say anything. It's your dad's, just hold it. 3 months later, it led to him spending the night out at a friend's house. And the next morning, the mom came to me and she said, Marty, I got to tell you what happened last night. She said it was 10 till 12, and Matthew comes tearing into the bedroom. Mom, where are the rosaries? Where are the rosaries? Garrett prays the rosary for his dad every night. And she said, I watched 4 10-year-old boys pray the rosary for your husband. And she said, that is why our kids are in Catholic school. And finally, it was learning to let go completely to God, trusting that he knew in his time what was right for me. So we came to San Antonio. When we came to San Antonio, we knew my husband would retire after 24 years. I could finally have that career, because all along I'd been doing whatever supported the family and the needs. And I had a position where it was within reach. I was there. And I had to walk away from it. I had to leave it. It was the hardest decision I ever made, and it was the hardest decision for my kids. But I wasn't a good wife. I wasn't a good mom. They were suffering. And quite honestly, I was put in a position that ethically I had to do things that were not in the best interest of the children I served or the families by my administrator. So I resigned. Never had a harder decision in my life. Really a dark time because I'm like, God, this is my time. It's here. And I couldn't do it. And, but that's when my prayer shifted. Before it was always about, God, help me to do this, help me to do that. And that whole next year of discernment, the prayer became, God, whatever your will is, help me to bring your love to these children. A whole year. And that was my prayer. So that choice in saying yes to my core values and not keeping a job that went counter to what everything I believed in when it comes to education led me to this position here. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be the superintendent, but I never lose sight of the fact that this wasn't my doing. This was in God's time, and it was his plan. I never sought to be a superintendent. I happened to be in the office. Father Martin, who just left, is my boss. If you ask him, he's like, we didn't even know you were there. And when the former superintendent left, he asked if I would be the interim, and while they did a search. And he talked to me about the search and looking for people. And I told the staff, I said, we've got 4 months, tops. They're going to find somebody to come in here in 4 months. What can we do? How can we impact the schools? And that led to Archbishop asking me to take the position as superintendent. And it's an amazing, humbling experience. It's not about me. It's not about the job. It's not about the paycheck. It is about truly having the opportunity to live life aligned with my values that shares the faith. It's amazing. It's the best job ever. I love it. But it's important to recognize that we all start our faith journey in different places. And we all have different experiences. Not everybody's the same. One of the things y'all ask me about is practical things. When I interview candidates for a position, I want to hear their passion. I want to hear what shapes their core values. What do you believe in? What do you believe in? I want to hear their commitment to excellence. Are you leaving your job better for the person that comes behind you? And those are the things I listen for, because I can't teach that. I can teach a lot of other stuff, but I can't teach that. And so when I interview people, that's what I look for. I also, when I'm serious about a candidate, and it's easy for me, I was looking at some of the videos they sent my way, and I know I'm over my time, and I'm shortening it up, I promise. But when I was looking at some of the clips of other people that were talking, that have talked to you before. I'm fortunate that I can live out my faith in a Catholic environment. That's what I do. So as part of my interviews, when I'm serious about a candidate, I ask them, are you open to allowing the Holy Spirit to lead you and guide you? And I always, it depends on the position and how much, are you active in your parish, that kind of stuff, because for us as educators, we want to be in communion with the church. But everybody's on different journeys, different paths, different walks. If you had asked me 15 years ago, would I be up here talking about my faith? Absolutely not, probably. I don't know. I wasn't there. But are you willing to allow the Holy Spirit to guide you? And I look for that. So tonight, I would challenge each of you to look at your life experiences to date, wherever you are. Look and reflect on the aha moment. When have you had an aha moment, like something clicked? I always used to say, and I still believe it, God absolutely had to take a 2x4 to my head many times. Many times, right? But when I look back and reflect, every one of those aha moments was him speaking to me through someone or something. If you haven't had an aha moment, or multiple ones that you can stack up to shape the direction of your life or where you're going, I would ask you to think about the pace of your life. How plugged in are you to your devices? How connected are you in your relationships? Are you really strong in your opinions and perspectives? I almost let my husband quit the Marine Corps because I had to have a job. I mean, how selfish was that? And it took God changing that around. So take a look at those aha moments. Then define your core values from that. If you don't know what your core values are, start figuring them out. Start figuring them out. I would say the first intentional one was that conversation I had with my husband about commitment. We were committing to stay married. We could have easily gone a different way. It was tough. It was hard. I'm not going to say it's not. Life is hard. Life is real. But none of it mattered without him. And so when realizing that and committing to that, we said to each other at the time, I remember, we are either going to spend our lives being completely miserable with each other, or we're going to find a way to make ourselves happy. And we've had a really good, solid marriage, and we continue to do that. But it's not, it's, you know, I don't know which day of the week you ask him. I mean, I'm great, but you know, you gotta. But then we also all make sacrifices for our jobs. If you're in a career and you're in a high-powered track, or you're in something that's moving you along, I would venture to say you are going to be challenged to make sacrifices. And I want to be clear, you do need to sacrifice. We sacrifice. I sacrifice time from my family. My husband travels almost every week. And I'll give you an example, a practical example. You have to keep the balance. My 12-year-old daughter does not like it. When I first took this job, it was all consuming. And she did not like it that I was not home every night until 10 o'clock, and I left at 7 in the morning, and I would travel a lot. And she was struggling. So what we did was every time I left town, we had 2 journals. And when I was gone, I would write to her every night, and she would write to me. And when we get home, we'd swap. And that's all it took. My husband used to travel with the kids' calculus homework with them. And when they had problems with calculus, every night he's on the road, he's on the phone, working the problems with them. Be present for what matters. Be present for what matters. Keep the balance. Allow them to keep you humble. Okay? So if you're in that fast track and you get challenged, if it's going against your core values, what alternatives do you have? And you may not be able to make the choice to walk out. And you shouldn't. But really stay true to your core. Stay true to your core. So, I don't mean to preach. I want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. My kids tell me all the time, Mom, I got this. Mom, you don't need to tell me anymore. But y'all are in an exciting time of life, so enjoy it. Never lose sight. I wish I was, y'all are intimidating because it's like, y'all got it together. You know, when I was your age, not so much. So anyway, how many teachers are here? There's a lot of you. Yay for what you do. Thank you for what you do. It's amazing. It's a hard job. So, well, thank you for having me. Okay.
Thank you.